Hello. We are Team E-Conomists, and we have spent this semester trying to create an information visualization to allow someone to easily compare the development and globalization of a country. So we have two composite indexes that we've created for this, the development composite and the globalization composite that you see here. And you'll see on the right of the screen we have the development indices and globalization indices listed. These can be selected or deselected to allow for changes in the composites live on the screen. Development and globalization composite scores are calculated using the selected indices from the corresponding column on the right side of the page. The development composite score uses an adjusted normalization calculation, which for each index calculates an index norm using the 25th percentile to normalize all indices below the 25th percentile. And the max value of that index normalize all indices above the 25th percentile plus 1. These index norms are then inverted across the range from 0 to 2 in cases where the index has a negative development impact, such as the case of infant mortality, and then an average is taken across all normalized index values to get a score for that country. And that's all very technical, but basically the important part is that the index is a sort of ordinal representation to compare countries' development, and a similar computation is used for globalization.
The scatter is our main screen. It plots the globalization values against the United Nations MDG values, utilizing the computed composite value. The scales on both axes are from 0 to 2, which is the entire range allowed, so it's very clear where countries stand on the whole. Users can modify what indices are contributing to the composite, and the dots will animate to new positions reflecting the difference that indice contributed to. The size of every dot is scaled to their population size and colored by region of the world. Brushing is available on the scatter and filters the data in all the other vises, even if you change the years until you click off. When you change years, dots will animate from their current position to their new position to illustrate change. Hovering over any dot in the Plots tab will produce a tooltip that shows you the values for the composite scores and also the change over time to give the user some context, with the two spark lines provided here. While the scatter gives users a larger overview, the vibe gives users a chance to look at more specific information.
So this triangular plot is our vibe, which provides more specific information alongside the composite data on the main scatter plot. The plot uses 3 normalized coordinates corresponding to the corners of the triangle. The result is a plot that gives us greater insight into the balance and relationships between the individual indices relating to globalization and development. Countries that are closer to the corners are heavily weighted towards that index. Countries that are closer to a side of the triangle are weighted towards the 2 indices corresponding to the adjacent corners. And the closer a point is to the center, the more balanced a country is regarding those 3 indices. You can select which index you want to examine with these 3 drop-down menus on each corner of the plot. If we select departures, arrivals, and export, we can look at how these 3 measures might be related. As you can see, there is one group which is well balanced on these 3 indices, and a smaller group of countries is generally weighted towards export and arrivals. There are some that are closer to the corners and some that are closer to the side corresponding to export and arrivals.
To gain more insight into global trends, we have a second tab of the tool that shows users a map. So for the map visualization, we have the ability to switch the views between MDG composite and globalization composite. Each country's color is calculated by dividing the composite scores into an ordinal scale of 6 colors. The key for these colors seen here changes according to the current state of the map colors. The timeline that allows filtering in the scatter and vibe plots also does the same in the map. Similarly, the indices for MDG and globalization can also be selected and deselected to change which values are taken into account when calculating the composite scores.
Our visualization allows us to answer many questions about how globalization impacts development. For example, we might be curious about some specific technology usage in countries with below average development. Selecting signs of technological advances such as energy, internet, and mobile use, and then brushing over the lower half of the plot, we can see that the countries performing below average in the development indices are not yet using more sophisticated and globalizing technologies like internet and cell phones as much as their peers. As we expected, regions with more third world countries such as Africa, have generally lower development and globalization scores than regions like Europe. But for all countries, over time there's a positive correlation and a slow upward trend through the years, which seems to show that globalization and human development are indeed correlated.